It's Corso and Catone. Brought to you by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Now for the real deal New England feel. Corso and Catone.
And welcome into Corso and Catone.
What the hell is wrong with you?
The real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone's here. Joe's with us in the booth. We're all Eagles fans this week.
Oh, my God.
And hopefully you are this week, too, watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, anywhere you podcast, you can catch us. And listen, when you're on YouTube, make sure you check out our shorts. Very proud and excited about those. And when you're on there, give us that like and thumbs up. Get all our notifications so you never, ever, ever miss a show, a short. It's pretty crazy. Mark does some.
After that intro, nobody's giving us a thumbs up.
well, they can bitch at us in heated hotline, 855-313-PATS, P-A-T-S. Message line, leave us a message 24/7. Have a take. Joe will pick one and play it. Or mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com. Hey, got a good one. Super Bowl L1X, 59, right, Mark? L-I-X,
L-I-X, whatever it is.
I don't know. I'm not that bright. I had to ask somebody.
That's what I was going to say. I get confused with those Roman numerals. You know what I mean?
So stick around. We're going to give our keys and breakdown and keys to victory for both teams. And, of course, B's and C's. Going to talk a little, mostly Celtics tonight. And Catone's comments, stick around for that. Mark, your driving school stuff on the shorts got quite a few views. So stick around for Catone's comments and go back in the week and weekly rewind. Talk a little Patriots, guys. It's Super Bowl 59 time.
Wow, Super Bowl week, right?
Super Bowl week.
Okay,
another year we're not in it. So
we're just a little bit away from getting into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, we have a vested interest here. Us and everybody out there in Patriots land. You know, where everybody keeps telling us, hey, you know what? Step aside, let somebody else in. No.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like a
you
baby.
You don't share your toys, right?
That's right. I'm like a baby who got something taken away from me. So let's see. But let's what do you say we get into that, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go. Right. Let's see where you go.
Let's do it in Pat's preview. Joe.
Pat's preview.
So, again, Super Bowl 59 pits the Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly's the home team, so they'll be wearing I assume, the darker colored jerseys and so on and so forth. And we're going to get to this. We'll get to our picks later on in this segment. Kansas City is favored by 1.5. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, too, when we give you our picks. And the over-under is 48.5. So, Mark, just like we do with the Patriots in their games, let's talk about this one. Let's break this down for everybody out there. You know, everybody's been talking about the peripheral nonsense all week long. Well, let's talk about how.
At this point, I just want the game to stop and get all this nonsense. I don't want to listen to no more talk.
No, me either. But if these teams are going to win the game, we have to give the keys to victory as to how they're going to do it. So, what do you want to start? You want to start with Kansas City on offense? What do they need to do?
Let's start with Kansas City, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, first of all, they're gonna bring a big bag for the refs, right?
Yeah.
We're not gonna go. Listen, no ref talks. We're not gonna.
They'll add to the bag they've already given the refs.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that today. No referee talk.
So, what are your keys for Kansas City on offense? What do you think is going to happen for them to win this game?
Believe it or not, I think in this particular game, and they really haven't done a lot of playoffs. And you talked about this a couple of games ago. You said to me, Mark, you know what? Pacheco is going to be real important to this team in the playoffs, and he really hasn't shown up. But I think the combination of Pacheco and Hunt are going to be important in this game because I do believe that Andy Reid is going to come out and he's going to try to establish some sort of a running game. He's going to, no matter how he's going to scheme it to do it, because I just think this Philadelphia front four, you can't let them just dig in and come at you. he's going to have to try to keep Philly off balance, Chris. This is the game where he's going to have to establish the running game. He can't run the same offense he's been running all year. He's going to and Andy Reid is brilliant at throwing a tweak at you. We haven't seen that all year. He's going to do that this week with the running game. You mark my words. He's going to throw something at them with the running game and establish the run that he probably hasn't done all year. I think that's going to be the biggest key for them, Chris, in this game offensively, because, I'll let you break down the receiving group because I know you're not impressed with them. I think they have to establish the run.
Well, to me, that would be what teams do against them. Go against the grain of what you do.
And I think they're going to have to do that against Philly's defense.
Well, for me, I'd look at this and I think Andy Reid sits there and says, no, we're going to do what we do. We're going to fool them. Nakobe Dean's out. We're going to try to exploit that situation in the middle of the field by misdirection, by some motion. We're going to rub out and if they're going to put a lot of attention on Kelsey, you saw it in the AFC Championship game where they got Juju Smith-Schuster, who sucks, open. Oh, okay, wide open. Why? How'd they do it? They saw they wheeled, they wheeled Kelsey out, and then they watched the coverage go to him, and then that little slant, that little sluggo route by Smith-Schuster opened up. So I think you're going to see a lot of that stuff. And again, Mahomes being Mahomes, if they let him out of the pocket, it's got to be part of their game. While there's no design runs, Kansas City doesn't really do that. But just what he does in general, sneaking out, getting down the sideline, flopping, buying calls, all that stuff. So I think they do what they do.
So you don't think they're going to deviate? When we say keys to victory, they just have to do what they do, and you think stick with what they do is going to be their key to victory and not do anything different?
No, I don't think so. I think to them, protection of Mahomes, not like, in other words, the offensive line when they're pass protecting, they want to be able to get those defensive ends, those front, either Sweat or whoever's coming, get them upfield behind the quarterback, so that Mahomes has lanes to slip out, and that to me is what Kansas City does. They're not that strong on offense, even though they seem to. They scored 30 points for the first time.
And Chris, that was deceiving last week, and we talked about this. You and I talked about this the other day. Okay, yeah, they scored
because we have no life. This is what we do, whether it's on air or off air. It'll make a difference.
Doesn't matter to us.
Real deal.
That's true. Listen, they scored 32 points the other day, but we talked about the other day, you and I, in that game. They said, everyone said, Josh Allen, it wasn't on him. He protected the ball. He had no turnovers. Yeah, they did have turnovers. They got stopped twice on fourth down in the midfield area, give or take 5 yards either way. Those were 2 turnovers, Chris. You gave Kansas City the ball on a short field. If you don't do that, they don't go over 30, and you probably win that football game. But those 2 conversions that they don't make essentially are 2 turnovers. You give them a short field, they score points on both of those, and you lose the game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and they had
so
300.
You say
they had 368 total yards against Buffalo. Buffalo's defense was crap. They rushed.
Buffalo's defense was kind of crap all year. They kind of played with a little bit of smoke and mirrors, I think. Anyway.
They allowed Kansas City to rush for 100. So they rushed for 135 yards. But if you look at the previous 2 games, you look at the division round, against the Ravens. I'm sorry, not against the Ravens. Against the Texans, okay, which is the only other game they played. Kansas City had 212 yards of offense. That's more like them throughout this season. Yeah. And the passing was 162 yards. So we'll talk about the Eagles defense now. Because if they hold Mahomes to that number, like 160 yards, maybe, a touchdown throwing the ball, you would have to think the Eagles are going to kick the crap out of this team if that happens. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Well, even if they don't kick the crap out of them, Chris, you would have to think that Philadelphia is going to score somewhere in the minimum Philadelphia should be able to score mid to upper 20s. With the stats that you just described, there's no way that Kansas City will be able to score enough points to keep up, you wouldn't think, right? Because listen, you want to talk
Not
about
without
Philadelphia.
mistakes on
No.
the other side.
No. Chris, we want to talk about keys. I think one of the big keys in this game is going to be the fact that I think Philadelphia's defense can get pressure with that defensive line.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 guys. They're not going to have to blitz. They're not going to have to do anything exotic. They're going to get pressure with 4 guys, and they're going to force Mahomes to have to. They're going to flood the zone on Mahomes. They're going to have drop 7 guys back, just like Tampa did the year Tampa beat them. Shaq Barrett was in the backfield the entire game. Every so often they blitzed in that game, but they flooded the zone. Mahomes had nobody to throw to, and they had a much better receiving core then than they do now, Kansas City.
Yeah, they don't have the one-on-one guys. They don't have the guys that are the deep threats because the corners, the Mitchell and Slade, the corners for you mentioned this, for Philly are damn
Mitchell
good.
and DeJean are damn good.
DeJean, yeah. So I think they locked down what's his name over there, the wideout
Worthy?
for Worthy and Schuster, whoever else they bring
And
out.
Worthy, Chris, listen, if you look at Worthy, he doesn't run great routes. They scheme. You mentioned Andy
To get
Reid
him open.
scheming. They scheme to get him open. And you also mentioned, Chris, you mentioned earlier about a couple to me earlier today about, well, they probably would have lost maybe that Rams game, Philly, if it didn't snow. But there's a big difference between the Rams offense and Kansas City's offense. Explain the difference. Why they were successful against that team.
Yeah, because when you got a front 4 like Philly does, and you can bring that pressure, and you want to play zone, you got Cooper Kupp and Nakua are like zone destroyers. Those 2 guys. What those 2 guys can do in the middle of the field against you, and finding those holes and slots and running away from guys to get open. Yeah, Kansas City doesn't have that.
Kansas City doesn't compare to that.
And neither did Washington, and that's why they kicked the living crap out of Washington.
Philly on offense, Chris. What's your key with
Well,
Philly
wait,
on
the
offense?
last thing I'm going to say about the defense, Kelsey. You and I talked about this. Philly's got good enough linebackers where you could play zone over, and you can just play man on Kelsey all day long with a linebacker, so he doesn't drift into those holes.
Yeah.
Go ahead now. You were talking about the opposite
Philly on
side
offense.
of the ball. Yeah, listen, I mean, geez, they're stacked, but you can't overthink it. You can't outthink yourself. This will be the biggest problem with Philly. If they come into this game and try to spread them out and not run the ball and use A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, that's a problem, because that just plays into Spagnuolo's desire to blitz, to bring pressure all day long. You got to run the ball.
You got to play with what brought you to. You got to go what brought you to the dance, right? Run the ball, force them to try to come up with a way to stop Barkley. Are they going to load the box? If they load the box, Chris, you'll kill them with Brown and Smith and the tight end. Kansas City don't have the corners, Chris, to play them man to man. So if they try to load the box to stop Barkley, which a lot of teams have done this year, as long as Jalen Hurts doesn't wet himself, he should pick that secondary apart. If they load the box to stop Barkley, and if Spagnuolo plays his basic base defense that he always plays and disguises with blitzes and different things, I think Barkley could have 200 yards rushing.
Yeah, if they commit to it.
If Kansas City plays that way.
Yeah, if they commit to it. Look, Kansas City allowed 150 yards rushing in both playoff games against Mixon and Cook.
They're not Barkley.
So you can definitely run the ball against this team. If they rush for 150 yards, this kid should rush for over 200 in this game. So if you're committed to it and you stick to it and you don't overthink it, you should have a big day, because if they load that box, Mark, like we talked about, Cam, who do you have in that secondary besides
McDuffie
that's going to play one-on-one with Smith and even against A.J. Brown? Yeah. No, thank you. I'm not putting McDuffie one-on-one against him.
As a whole, outside of Mahomes, I get Mahomes. Obviously, he's the difference maker. He's the reason why they win these Super Bowls, right? But outside of Mahomes, I think Philly's got the advantage on offense, and Philly's got the advantage overall on defense.
Top to bottom, they're a better team. Now we'll see. We'll see. So It's
We'll
a
see.
1.5, Mark. But what do we say the other night about that point? I think Vegas is trying to dupe everybody right now.
You think they want you to take Kansas City in this game?
Oh, yeah. They see it. They
Well,
see it.
Chris, you said Philly should, at the very least, minimum, be a field goal favorite in this game. Minimum.
I believe. I mean, look, this is a team that's going to score over 30 regularly. Kansas City did it once.
Yeah.
And that was because of the short field, like you talked about. So Kansas City scored, what, 32 points the week?
32
last week?
points.
So,
32.
you know, just by the so Vegas knows what they're doing. They're trying to get everyone to dump money on Kansas City when they know full well by right Philly should really kick the crap out of this team. So I'm taking that 1.5, and I'm burying Philadelphia in this game. I'm not actually going to do it because I don't want to put the screws to this whole thing, to the Patriots indirectly. But that's what I'm doing. You? And I'm looking at a score, by the way, of like 38-24, something like that.
Okay, Joe, Kansas City's three-peating. He just put the nail in our coffin, the Patriots coffin. They're three-peating. Anybody ever see the Bronx Tale? Go rent the Bronx Tale. He's Eddie Mush.
Forget what I said. Kansas City's going to find a way. They're going to find a way, and they're going to win by 2. They're going to win by 2. Joe, who do you like?
Philly.
Listen, I honestly, Chris, if you said to me, Mark, who wins the game? I told you this the other day. If Philly has the better team, Philly should win this football game. There's no question about my mind. Philly should win this game. But I can't do it because if I do it, last year I picked San Fran. I'm going to go the Kansas City Chiefs 27-24 on a last-minute field goal. And I'm hoping the fact that I picked Kansas City, it goes the other way.
I'm changing my mind, too. That's what I think is going to happen. 3-point game. Joe likes Philly. Okay. Yeah. Who's the MVP of this? Mahomes.
If they win, it's Mahomes. Obviously, Mahomes is MVP.
Philly wins, it's Barkley.
If Philly wins, it's going to be Barkley.
Because it's going to have to be.
Yeah.
So,
listen. We're betting this one with our we're betting with our heart. We're taking Kansas City because Chris and I never win the Super Bowl. If you tune into us year after year, we're always, unless the Patriots are in it, we're always on the wrong side with our picks.
Yeah. So let us know what you think after this all happens and how wrong or right we were. But Pat's preview was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern.
Eagles fly.
8 a.m. Eastern. Hey, tune in tomorrow. We're going to have more breakdown of this game, a little more detail because we'll have a little more time for it. But when we come back, we're going to go B's and C's. No flipping.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
And with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. All right, let's talk B's and C's, but I think it's just going to be C's today. What do you think, Mark?
Listen, I can't talk 1 minute about the Bruins. They disgust me. I can't talk about them today.
Well, let's go. Joseph.
It is over. The Boston Celtics are the world champions, and they have shown the world how great a ball club they really are. Screen shot.
Okay, Mark, let's get into the Celtics a little bit. Look, they've been coming on now, all right? And last 3 games, Pelicans, 76ers, Cavaliers. Of course, this is airing on Saturday, so, I think there's another game, Friday night, I want to say? Or tonight?
Thursday night. Yeah, they're playing Dallas, actually. I think Anthony Davis might make his debut for the Mavericks.
Well, so we'll say, the Maverick, that's not the matchup we thought it would be now. But anyway, when we're airing the show, these 3 wins and talking about that Cleveland win, it was a wire-to-wire deal pretty much in that game.
So listen, you and I have debated all year. Do they just think they're good enough and they can turn it on when they want to turn it on? They were playing the number 1 seed in the East. Team with the, one of the, between them and OKC, best records in the NBA.
Right.
Did they just turn it on and say, okay, let's turn it on now, show everybody we can, this teammate can't beat us. And they turned it up, beat them. You know what I mean? Was that what are they at that point now, Chris? Let's turn it up. We'll play defense. We'll beat this team because everybody's talking about Cleveland.
Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, in a nutshell. I mean, look, because, I mean, if you look at that game, they shot 40%. Yep. I mean, it's good, but it's not stellar. I mean, the field goal percentages were the same. 3-point percentages, that's where Boston got them at 35%. They were only 17 to 48, though. I mean, 35%. You like to see that up near 40, right? Yeah. But when you look at games like, I don't know. I do think that, because we talked about last week the arrogance of Missoula.
Yeah, okay? We've been talking about this.
The arrogance of Missoula. And we're going to hear from him in this segment too, just to kind of show that a little, But, or Porzingis is starting to get to be 100%. Because I'm watching this game and I'm looking at, they're winning in the points in the paint. When you talk about, I'm looking at the rebounds. Rebounds were pretty even, except for they were pretty even against Cleveland. But the point is, they were getting beaten in that area. We were worried about rim protection, what they're going to be like at the rim. What I liked about this game is they played at the rim.
They did.
Now, yes, they shot 53 pointers. I get it.
There we go.
But again, 42 points in the paint. Want to see that grow a little. But did you notice? I mean, you see that they played in the paint a little more. Their spacing was good. They allowed the point guards, to handle the damn ball.
I was just going to say to you, do you know who was more involved and aggressive? I was just going to say that. White and Holiday, right? All of a sudden, it's a big game, and they're more involved, Chris. Which is you've been saying for 2 years. That's the key. Those two guys, they should have the balls in their hand because they're going to drive this. If you let them do what they're supposed to do and why you brought them here,
yeah,
nobody should be able to beat you, Chris, in a 7-game series.
No, I don't. I agree with that. I mean, but that being said, you're right. I mean, maybe they get into the point now. It's saying, okay, well, here we are. It's whatever it is, February.
It's February. Are they going to start to wind themselves into form now for the playoffs and put the drive together? Is this what they're doing now? I don't know.
I don't know. But what makes me worried, like, okay, Horford in that game had 13 points. Okay,
I was going to say Horford played better in that game,
but he had 10 rebounds. Yeah. Now, if Porzingis is 100%, which there's no
guarantee.
There's no guarantee. In fact, that you're more likely that it's not going to be that way. So what the hell do you do with the rim?
And it does not appear, Chris, that they made any move. I do not believe they made a move at the trade deadline to bring in another big. So they did dump salary this week, which means when you get to the deadline for teams being able to dump veteran salaries, after the trade deadline, you could possibly pick one of those guys up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because you now dumped a little salary. So maybe they do pick up an extra rim protector. To your point, if Porzingis goes out, what do you do? Because Horford can play okay in spots, Chris. At his age, he's not going to give you the minutes you need in the playoffs if Porzingis is out.
No, he's not. And so we'll see what happens on that. And, they're 5 games out. Well, at this point, they're 5 games out as of Thursday to Cleveland. I think when push comes to shove, that Cleveland's not going to be able to beat them. No. However, let's say they get through. Okay. Yep. What are the Lakers showing now? Let's talk about that. Luka Doncic was traded.
Were you surprised by that trade?
Of course. Yeah. To me, that's like one of the biggest trades in NBA history. You're 25 years old.
And listen, I'm going to say this, though. I'm going to interrupt you. I know he's 25. Everyone says he's a superstar. Go back and watch our tape of the NBA final preview last year. You're not a fan of Doncic.
No. No, I'm not a fan of anybody that doesn't have a complete game. Can play a complete game.
You
I
don't
fight
think
with
he's
my
got a
son about
complete
this.
game?
No, he
Why
doesn't
not?
play defense.
Okay.
He's lazy. I mean, come on. First of all, did you see was there a lazier performance in that finals last year than him?
No, there wasn't.
I mean, he
You
doesn't
don't
play
think
defense.
LeBron will rub off on him, though?
I mean, I think LeBron is fighting to just, get up in the morning. You know what I mean? To get his arthritis. Right. But no. I mean, look, they got a lot better. Again, he's a top 5 guy in the league. I'm with you. Okay. I fight with my son about this all the time. He's a guy's top 2. No, he's not. The kid from Oklahoma City's 1. You know what I mean? And then, and Jokic. And I'll take Tatum over Luka too.
Oh, I'll take Tatum over Jokic over.
And then you can argue about Giannis versus him. You can argue about,
Chris, listen, here's the thing. The reason I don't think that's going to work is both those guys need the ball in their hands. You think LeBron's going to let him? He basically controlled the ball down the stretch in games in Dallas. Do you think LeBron's going to allow him to take control of the ball? Like, I don't know how this is going to work.
Sort of like
I get at this stage of his career, maybe LeBron don't care, but I find that hard to believe.
Sort of like a Lillard, Giannis situation.
Yes. Yes, exactly. How is this going to now work? I'm interested to see.
Well, and you're right. I'm interested to see how LeBron reacts to the lazy stuff, the not getting back on defense, not hustling, and because
now everyone's saying because LeBron's such a physical specimen, Doncic will have a 6-pack next year. He's going to get himself in shape. Yeah, okay.
No, he's never going to play defense. He's never going to look. But why did this happen? Like the Dallas uses the lazy. He's not in shape. That's not why this happened, Mark. Is it?
They saved over $100 million.
Yeah.
They screwed him. He got screwed. He can't get a supermax deal with the Lakers. They stuck it to him good. He lost $100 million with this trade.
Right. And he had just bought a $15 million home right before this happened. He was crying. You know what? Work out more. Get in weight, win that championship last year, and you're not going anywhere. But look, but Mark, this is indicative of a bigger thing that's coming in this league, isn't it? Because these owners are starting the tables have been tipped, and LeBron had a big hand in that, as he bounced around and took money from everybody.
The owners are going to try to take back some of the control of these salaries that are out of control. I don't know the way this system is set up, Chris. I don't know if they can, but this is one way of doing it. You can do these types of things.
Yeah. So, these super max deals, the $350 million deals, which is what he was going to get. Right. And so, but
I would argue, Chris, though, this. Was he worth that? I mean, is he really worth 300? I mean, I guess none of these guys are worth it, but 350 million. And then, but I would say this: if he's a top 5 guy, your son says top 2. Maybe he's right. I don't know. But did Dallas get enough for him? Like, shouldn't Dallas get more?
I agree. I think so. But they don't want to pay anybody. That's why they don't want more. They're looking for more. They're looking at the dumb salary. But, you talk about the arrogance.
They changed ownership now, right? Yeah. Because the owner's gone. Cuban's not the principal owner anymore.
This would never have happened with him.
No, Cuban would have never done this. They're dumping salary. You're right.
You were talking about arrogance earlier with Mazzulla and company?
Absolutely.
This is what he said when he was asked before he was even asked about the trade, Joe.
Questions? Don't ask about the trades. I don't really care.
There it is.
Listen, if they win another Super Bowl, yeah, right. If they go back to back, Chris, can you imagine the ego on this guy? What it's going to be like? He's going to be out of control. Like
talking about subconscious, unconscious, with your conscious, conscious mind, and all this other nonsense. They're not going back to back. I hate to tell you.
All right, we're going to see.
Let's see what the second half brings. Let's see what the second half brings.
It's going to be an interesting spring.
It will be an interesting final run. So stick around to us to make sure you keep up to date on everything. But B's and C's was presented by Corso Law Group, corsolawgroup.com. Hey, we come back. Got something good for us today?
Oh, I always have something good for you. What are you asking, Joe? That's a silly, silly question.
Catone's comments.
Every now and again.
Catone's comments is next.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help.
Time for Catone Comments!
So everybody knows that I'm a crazy diehard college basketball fan, right? So as I'm looking around college basketball right now, and I'm looking at the top 25, and I'm looking at teams that could possibly how many teams from each conference could be in the tournament, because it's February now, the clock is turned, college football's over. This week, the Super Bowl will be over, and now the attention's going to start to turn to March Madness and the conference tournaments, and all these rankings. What's your strength of schedule, and who's going to be on the bubble and all this stuff. But as I'm looking, you got teams like Mississippi, Georgia, Mississippi State. The SEC might get 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. That'd be a record. No one's ever got 10 teams, 11 teams in the NCAA tournament. They're going to get that many teams in the NCAA tournament. Those are football schools. They're not basketball schools. Historically, who are the basketball schools? You had, the teams from the Big East. You had Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, the Indianas, the Michigan States, those are the schools. Every so often you'd get a Michigan in. They were, they're technically a football school, but they'd have a good basketball team now and again, right? But now, NIL, the money you're getting from football, the amount of money you can spend to bring players in, the entire landscape now of college basketball has shifted. What happened? It's football. It's already twisted and flipped. Now it's ruining college basketball. The old blue bloods. We'll talk about blue bloods. The old blue bloods. They used to say Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky, Duke. Where are the blue bloods? North Carolina is not going to make the tournament. This will be their second year in a row. Kentucky is okay. They're just another team. You can't, Kansas is okay this year, but those schools are falling behind because the football schools got all the money. I know North Carolina has a football team, and obviously Belichick's there, and I know that, Kansas, technically, Kentucky have football programs. Not like those programs. They're bringing in big dollars. They got the big boosters. They got the huge athletic departments. So NIL, it's now flipping with the football money. And these agreements they're coming up with, they're going to flip it to now the university can actually pay the players. They don't even need a collective, an NIL collective to pay. So it's going to become even worse. So I'm concerned as a basketball purist, my Big East, if those schools can survive this new frontier of what college basketball is becoming. PC struggling this year. They got a lot of injuries. They just lost another player for the rest of the year. However, schools like St. John's, Providence, Georgetown, the Villanovas, even Marquette, they're okay. Creighton. Can those schools survive? 5 years from now, those schools might be playing in a conference with teams like URI because they don't have football. Like the glory days of the Big East and those schools, it might be over. Because they don't have the revenue to these other schools have, so they'll be in a conference where you're getting one bid and that's it. So I'm afraid for the future of college basketball. I just have to put this out there because the landscape is now being engulfed by football. And I'm afraid for like the Big East and conferences like that, because I grew up Big East. I mean, there's nothing like Saturday night at Madison Square Garden, and I've been there when PC or somebody's playing for a conference championship in March. But I'm afraid they're going to lose that soon because of this craziness. I don't know, Chris. It's the more I'm looking at this season, it seems like it's a microcosm of what's coming. And when it comes, I don't know if conferences and schools that are in the Big East are going to survive, and they're going to be like afterthoughts. And, they'll be, like I said, they'll be in conferences with teams like URI, St. Joe, St. Bonaventure. Like, you'll be stuck with those teams because you can't compete anymore.
Well, talk to me again now. This is one of his more lucid, thought out comments, is it not?
He must have taken his pills.
You know what? You see the two of you. You know what? Listen, I don't need pills for a lucid comment.
You got your meds all set.
Yeah.
But seriously, talk to me about. So you said about the NIL. You said how the NIL is affecting us. Go through that again.
But NIL, Chris. So that's that.
I know what it is.
Name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. But how is that affecting?
Because every school had to have something called a collective, where you would raise money in a fund
and
dump it into this thing where you could then pay players, like PC's paying guys like Bryce Hopkins through this collective, and you do fundraisers and you go out and get money. But now these big football schools,
they're
Chris,
just dumping it into the football program.
Well, it's friends. They're getting donations from friends in quotations of the program, and they're dumping it in. And they got like Ohio State, Chris. It's like free agency in the NFL. Ohio State had the largest payroll for athletes in football in the entire country. Number 2 was Michigan. So you wonder why Ohio State won a national championship. Notre Dame was paying a fraction of what Ohio State paid those players they had on that field.
But Mark, wouldn't it make so wouldn't that be so? Basketball's getting NIL money too. So what
it is, but the football schools get more, Chris, and then they can determine how they divide that up among sports. Obviously, it's filtering into college basketball, but it's about to change because they had a loss. There was a lawsuit from these big conferences about revenue sharing and about it's really. I mean, we could talk about this for an hour, but the amount of money they're taking in from bowl games and from all this other stuff that they're getting money from, through revenue sharing, they want to be able to pay the players through the university, not through an NIL collective. They want to be able to pay. Georgia can pay their athletes from a fund run by the athletic department. You donate to the University of Georgia,
can you imagine?
And now you can pay players from that. You don't need an NIL collective.
Well, that's going to be out of control, though.
Well, now you're going to need all kind of regulations, but I'm afraid when that happens, and it's coming soon because of this lawsuit, and they're coming to an agreement on it, a conference like the Big East will never survive, Chris.
Well, yeah, but okay, I understand that, but wouldn't it make sense then? Wouldn't it be logical to say, all right, but these conferences and these schools, St. John's, Creighton, Georgetown, so on,
they're still conferences don't want them.
No, but they're still getting, but those schools and those conferences are still getting money towards the NIL, and that's the only place it's going is basketball.
It is.
It's not having to be put into football or anything like that.
Okay, so
wouldn't that mean they can draw better?
So PC, I think their collective might have.
It's just not enough, is what you're saying.
Might have $3 or $4 million in it.
Well, then who the hell are the basketball players?
Georgia must have Georgia's probably got. What do you mean? Who's getting it?
But what I'm saying is, if the NIL money's coming in, say Georgia, just take Georgia for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, they're getting crap loads of money for football, for the NIL, but I believe that they're deciding to put mostly all of it into football, not basketball. So. But now
these schools,
Georgetown's putting it all into basketball.
They are, but now, but Georgetown's got say 10 million. Georgia's got 100 million.
So they could afford to put 20
million in basketball and 80 in football.
I understand. Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's how lopsided it is.
That's how lopsided it is. It's big, big money, Chris.
Well,
Big.
so do you think that when it switches over, like you said, where, okay, you say, all right, it's going to come from boosters, it's going to come from alum, it's going to come from that area, okay, and then they're going to be able to disperse it to the players. So team like Creighton, school like Creighton, they're not going to have donors like that. They're not going to have that history.
They might have
donors.
a few, Chris, but it's not even donors.
UNC.
But what they're going to do, Chris, with this revenue sharing, I think they then can take money from these bowl games and put it into this athletic fund to pay players.
You don't think there's any way for basketball to balance that out somehow?
I don't know. There could be, but right now they haven't figured it out yet. And
because the tournament's down. Huh?
Listen, nothing.
Interest in the tournament's down a bit.
Well, I don't know. If it may be a little bit.
I heard last year that the ratings of it weren't as.
They weren't as good. And Chris, now that they went to the 12-team playoff, college football that's the cash cow. Come on, that 12-team playoff was brilliant.
Oh yeah, I mean,
right?
I mean, they got tweaking to do, but it was good.
They got tweaking to do, but you know what I mean?
Well, so because, and I see it because the ratings are down a bit, and you know why? Because just for your point is okay. So if North Carolina is not the big gun anymore, if it's not Kansas, if it's not Georgetown,
Kentucky.
if it's not Kentucky, and Arizona, and these schools out that are always right there, these schools that really are predominantly basketball interest schools. So if those teams are not advancing in the tournament, you're losing tons of viewership. Whereas Georgia, say, goes deep into the playoffs. The Georgia fans don't care anyway. They're not looking at basketball. They're looking at football.
Yeah. I mean, they're watching it. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but it ain't that rabid fan base for basketball.
No, I mean, the Sweet 16. So Georgia gets to the Sweet 16. They're not drawing the football crowd until they get to like the Final Four.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Where if a team like Creighton goes to the Sweet 16, the whole campus is going crazy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Interesting, Mark. Good point. Again, lucid.
Oh, here we go.
Lucid. Joe, aren't you impressed? Joe's
I'm stunned.
He is speechless right now.
Listen, I figured after last week I had to come up with something lucid. You guys made fun of my driving school.
I can tell you what.
I had to come up with something lucid.
People out there like the driving. People out there like your driving school comments.
Yeah.
So you got lots of looks at that. Mark, it's a good point. It's something for us to actually pay attention to, and I'm interested to see what the tournament ratings are going to be like this March.
This year, yeah.
So we'll be interested to see that. But Catone's Comments was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tune in tomorrow, Super Bowl Sunday, where we're going to have a breakdown of that game, talk Patriots, and so much more. But hey, when we come back, going to go back in the week in Weekly Rewind. Stick around.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. All right. I think it's going to be all Patriots in this one. But let's go back into the week. Weekly Rewind right now. Going back through the week. About a weekly rewind. Okay, Mark, we got a lot to talk about with the Patriots. So, I mean, their coaching staff is now set. Okay. And by the way, this is the most amount of assistants
they've ever had in a long time, right?
I mean, well, put it this way. They have, I think it's like 27 or something like that, coaches.
So
they had 20 with Belichick.
Kraft anteed up.
Well, I don't know what they get paid because I know that the big guns like Josh McDaniels has still got 3 more years on the Vegas contract.
Okay, so that's
So he's not getting paid there, but you could see Vrabel's input here, and he's saying basically these are the guys I want. So they filled it out. But I will say something interesting about this. They got a lot of guys in key positions, the running back coach or offensive line coach, but for example, on offense, they have 2 assistant offensive line coaches. Okay. Other than that, that's it. Like there's a lot of positions that don't have another coach. They have one coach.
There's no
not
assistant.
an assistant to that coach. That's different.
Yes, it is. And
that's just them cheap or what? I don't know.
Well, is that because they're cheap, or is that because he brought in guys with so much experience? Like, we don't need no assistant. Man. We got a guy that's a fantastic offense. Macron is the offensive line coach. He's fantastic. McDaniels doesn't need an assistant. He's one of the best at what he does, right? The guy that's doing tight ends it is a lot to do. Although he does have a quarterback's coach. So,
you have a quarterback coach.
When McDaniels was here last time, Chris, he was OC/quarterbacks coach with Belichick.
Yeah.
Well, now they gave him a quarterbacks coach. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll see. But I'll tell you what, they got a ton of experience here. Head coaching.
They might have the most experience, Chris. They might have the most experience overall staff in the league.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Well, and they settled on their quarterback coach, Todd Downing. We thought maybe
the wide receiver coach, you mean?
The wide receiver coach, sorry.
Were you happy about that selection? I wasn't crazy about it.
Now we just got the wide receivers to coach.
Well, yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
true.
That's a big one, Joe.
And stick around, Chris, because we're going to be talking about that in the coming weeks.
Were you okay with that selection? Because you and I were talking about Wes Welker before that happened.
I would have liked to see a guy that played. I would have liked to see Welker because he played in the system.
Okay.
Downing, he comes from a McVay system. Well, see, this is this whole thing now.
Here we go. Yeah.
About how they're going to mesh. How are they meshing together, these guys? With this situation, and we're going to hear from Greg Bedard in a second on this. But the talk on all this was that McDaniels was forced, right? McDaniels was forced on Vrabel by the Crafts, and now Vrabel's bringing in all his guys. A lot of his guys run that McVay system out there, whereas McDaniel's system is different. So how are these guys going to mesh, Mark?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know what's interesting, Chris? Is this week it came out. I know, and I think Bedard's going to talk a little bit about this, Chris, but now everyone's saying, it's been reported that they're saying, I don't think you can comprehend the amount of work that Josh has put in over the past year and the places he has visited. He's spent time with the Chiefs. He spent time with the Rams. He spent time in college. They said, buckle up and wait till you see what he has Drake May running when the Patriots open up. Like, he's got so many things that he's added to his offense and what he wants to run based on what he's picked up in his time off from the Raiders. Now, whether that's true or not, Chris, I don't know. But that's what is being the last couple of days. A lot of that information's been coming out. But Dodd started it, and our other outlets are reporting the same thing.
Well, when talking
is that just a smoke screen? Like, you know what I mean?
He had to do something because McDaniel's system. We're going to hear from Drake May too in a little bit, because McDaniel's system is tough on the quarterbacks. It's tough on the receivers. As far as confusion, what it takes to learn that system. So something's got to give there. Maybe that's why. So we'll see what he's got up his sleeve. But this whole idea of him being forced on Vrabel, well, Bedard did an about face on that after getting some information, Joe.
As far as the ownership angle, that was uniformly shot down to me. And not one of my conversations was the name Kraft, owners, anything brought up to me. The relationship between Vrabel and McDaniels, I was told from multiple sources that they talked multiple times over the course of this last season. Nothing specific. Like, they couldn't really dial anything down. Like, hey, if I go to X, Y, or Z, like, I want you with me. Long time, probably right up until Mayo was fired, I don't think either of them thought that New England was a legit possibility. With McDaniels, he's at the point of his career. He's got another 3 years left that the Raiders are paying him on a very hefty contract. There's a lot of family considerations for him. Like he was going to be in the mix for between 5 and 7 sort of offensive coordinator openings around the league. And, if Vrabel went to Chicago, would McDaniels have been his offensive coordinator? From what I understand, the answer is yes.
That answered your question, Chris.
Listen, and that's, of course, Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal. Read his stuff. Get on. There's a lot of good insight, more than what he just talked about. So encourage you to go read his stuff. Listen, yeah, that flies in the face of what I thought. Now, is it accurate? Is that we'll see. We're going to see pretty soon, pretty quick. I like what I'm hearing. I like the fact that what you just said and what Bedard said about the fact that McDaniels is, evolving. We'll just call it that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, he's local, right? So the other thing I think that Vrabel has learned from his experience in Tennessee, Chris, was he went through several OCs. He had LaFleur left for a head coaching job. He had Arthur Smith. Smith leaves after a year or two, head coaching job. Then he had a couple of other guys after that who weren't successful. So I think the fact that you could bring McDaniels in, Chris, his family lives here. He still lives in the area. He's under contract with the Raiders for 3 more years. He ain't going somewhere next year to be a head coach. Like, this may be his last stop, or at the very least, it'll be 4 or 5 years probably before he thinks about, would I take another crack at a head coaching job? He's going to be here for quite a while with Vrabel. And I think that was also enticing to Vrabel because of what happened in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they are going to mesh well. Because I think that these guys, yes, they're big ego, they're big personalities, but they've also been around a long time, and they've all had pretty good success, especially McDaniels. And I think these guys respect the hell out of McDaniels because of the success, because they all look at him. Coaches look at coaches the same. And I think they look at McDaniels and say, he had something to do with Brady. He had something to do with that. Coach, that's how coaches think. So, I think that that respect is there. And then, but it's funny because you hear too the preference for that McVay Shanahan offense. And you start to hear, I don't think it's not as good as once thought. It's not as good. I mean, look, because you got the 49ers, Dolphins, Bengals, Colts, Cardinals, Panthers, Titans, they all missed the playoffs and they all run that system. And meanwhile, the last 4 teams that were in the playoffs, none of them run that system. Neither of the 2 teams in the Super Bowl run that system. So is that,
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Andy Reid, Chris, runs a version of a little bit, some of the basic premises of the old Bill Walsh system, a little bit. But yeah, you're right. He's not running McVay's offense. But that's a crock. That's a crock, Chris. Those teams are successful. That's a crock of BS. I mean, for people to say that now is ridiculous.
Joe Burrow, look at what Burrow did this year, and he started slow. Amount of touchdowns, he led the league. Here's Exhibit A: the Minnesota Vikings.
Donald, right?
Donald threw 36 touchdowns this year. Sam Darnold, and he was the backup. He threw 36 touchdowns in that offense. They went 14-3 in that offense. It wasn't,
Chris,
work.
Let me ask you this, though. Was it the McVay offense, or is it just because they got Justin Jefferson?
Well, I mean, it's still the offense is the offense. I mean,
you're right.
How it's being utilized, how he's, and the system that they're running. I mean, Christ, you can go down the list of these teams that are, even the ones that are some of the teams that are on this list. The 49ers had injuries all over the place. But, Christ, the 49ers have been in the Super Bowl now, what? So many years, they're always making the playoffs. They're always sniffing around. The Rams, the Rams came this close to beating Philadelphia in that game. So I don't buy any of that nonsense either, Mark.
No, I don't buy
the
it.
McVay system doesn't work. So I think they will mesh well. I think you're going to see some different stuff. Look, if anybody learned anything and could grow, It's McDaniels. He's smart enough. He's happy enough in New England. That's where he wanted to be. Listen, you heard the stories about what it was like in Vegas for him. His whole family was on the East Coast. Things weren't going well. He had nobody to turn to. He had no personal. These guys are humans.
Yeah.
This is where he wants to be. And so we'll see how that goes. You haven't had this much clout on the sideline for the Patriots since Charlie Weiss, Romeo Cornell, and Belichick.
Yeah.
And Scarnecchia,
and Scarnecchia, Chris, they claim, loves McDaniels, and he'll be around on an informal basis to, brainstorm, maybe look at some film if they want him to. He's a big fan of Doug Marrone, so you may actually see him every so often around the facility too now, Chris.
Yeah. And so now when you switch, you look it over to because we said this offense is hard on the wide receivers. It's McVay system's easier to pick up. It's easier for rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks to pick up. And so Drake May now in this system, I don't know how excited he is, but let's hear from him.
First conversation with Josh McDaniels like?
Yeah, he was awesome. He was awesome. I think he's what he's done with the Patriots, I think speaks for itself. He's coached one of the greatest, and I think the greatest to play. And what a success he had at the Patriots, and he's been a head coach as well. So he's got a lot of experience, and his stuff works. And if he proves it works, and his stuff's already in the system from all the years of the databases and the years they had it with Coach McDaniels. On kind of the film stuff. So it's been nice. I know a little bit of the terminology just from watching some old Tom stuff. But looking forward to getting things rolling, and he's fired up as well.
X's and O's on the first phone call. Was it a FaceTime, a Zoom? Like how nitty gritty did we get right away? Yeah, a little bit. Offensive coordinators they always find a way to gravitate toward talking X's and O's. So it wasn't too much. I think getting to know me first, and obviously that's a big deal for him getting those players. So. Did either Vrabel or McDaniels give you shit for missing the Vrabel intro press conference to get engaged?
I didn't get anything from them two. I did it. So, if they did, I would apologize. Obviously, be there for them. But, hey, I think it was a big part of my life. And I think, I didn't really know when they were going to, hire the head coach. So just timing was off.
That, of course, was Drake May appearing with Kay Adams on Up and Adams.
You look like the cat that ate the canary. Kay Adams. Chris has he loves Kay Adams.
She's a good sports journalist.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Joe. Joe. Yeah.
All right. So that last question, though, all right, is the point of what you guys were just talking about.
Is it hot in here?
McDaniels and coming here, and they're trying to dredge up some sort of story, some conflict. Him and Vrabel. Now it's here's another conflict. Did they get mad that you went to get married, get engaged? It's like that's the stuff that they're trying to find. It's
New England.
It's garbage.
It's New England, Joe.
I know.
It's garbage. Yeah, that is garbage, Joe.
All right,
Chris,
quick. We got 30 seconds.
How about she said, did you talk X's and O's? Well, of course they did. McDaniels. Yeah. I did
go
pick it up.
Not allowed to, but
Chris, did you catch his comment? Well, I'm already familiar with a little bit of the terminology he's been watching. He's already started watching Brady's game tapes.
Because McDaniels told him, hey, get into the archives. I can't work with you right now, but get into the archives and take a look at some things.
Of course, that's what he was telling you. I'm already studying. So he'll pick it up, Chris. He's a smart kid. He'll pick it up.
I'm more worried about the receivers than I am about him picking it up. I really am.
They got to do something with the receiver room. That's a problem, a major problem.
But it was nice to hear that audio. So
I know it was nice to hear the audio. I know the YouTube video of the interview is even better, Chris.
Yeah, but so we gotta go. Corso and Catone was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays 8 a.m. Eastern. Hey, tune in tomorrow. We're gonna have more about this McDaniel system, McVay, all of that stuff. So make sure you stick around, and we'll also have our picks and. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. Enjoy Super Bowl 59.
Now find Corso and Catone on AM 790, The Score, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you podcast. Or subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch the chaos every Saturday at noon.